Hello, everyone, and welcome to the First Class Lacrosse podcast. My name is Stephen Rafis, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Steamer Class. This will be our 8th and final College Coaches episode, but stay tuned for the college lacrosse season, as we will begin to roll out weekly podcasts dropping in your favorite podcast store every Friday morning. For this week's guest, we are thrilled to welcome Syracuse women's head lacrosse coach, Kayla Treanor, to the podcast. As a player at Syracuse, Kayla was a 4-time first-team All-American, 3-time IWLCA Attacker of the Year, 3-time ACC Offensive Player of the Year, 3-time Tour Award finalist, and was the 2016 ACC Women's Scholar Athlete of the Year. At the international level, Kayla has won 3 gold medals with Team USA, earning 1 with the U19 team and 2 with the senior team. Kayla retired from Team USA as the all-time leader in points and goals. As a coach, Kayla spent 1 season as an assistant coach at Harvard following her graduation from Syracuse before spending 4 seasons at Boston College as the associate head coach. In 2021, Kayla helped lead Boston College to their first national championship and shortly after was named the 3rd head coach in Syracuse women's lacrosse history, where she has led Syracuse to 2 Final Fours in her first 3 seasons. Kayla, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be here, spend the morning with you guys. And I'm a huge fan of what you guys do. So I'm excited.
Yeah, Kayla, it's really fun to have you on here. I remember, probably when I got to USC, I started seeing you more on the recruiting trail and always appreciated our conversations and wanted to pick your brain and it was always fun coaching against you for those couple of years. So, appreciate you being on and excited to learn from you today.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I remember playing against you guys when I was at BC. We played USC and our bus pulled up to play you guys. And you were out on the field with the attackers, just definitely talking X's and O's on the whiteboard. I'm like, oh man, here we go. And I think we did lose that game actually.
Was that the 2020?
It's gotta be. Yeah.
That was an interesting time. That was a good game for us. I remember the other 2 times, I think it was 21 and 19, we were at your place and kids were freezing. It was, you guys gave it a great effort. And I actually remember too, I feel like in 20, we ran this nations look and scored a goal, maybe in 19 and 20. And then you guys came back like the next year with a nations to then a pick for Charlotte North. And I just remember being like, damn, like that was a really nice evolution to one of those looks.
That was called Eagle. Yeah.
We'll get into your coaching career, Kayla, but first, reading your bio, obviously really impressive background as a player. Every coach that we've had on, like I said, you're our 8th one that we've had on. We've just started out with, their background, where you're from, sports that you played growing up. So for anyone that doesn't know you, even though I think the majority of our listeners will know you in some capacity or have heard of your name, can you just give us some background on that type of information?
So I grew up in Niskuna, New York, not far from you, Stephen, in Albany area. It's in upstate New York. I played 3 high school sports. I played soccer, basketball, and lacrosse. And actually, I started playing lacrosse in 7th grade. So I played basketball and soccer at a really young age. And then lacrosse was sort of the last sport that I picked up. And we had to play a sport every season growing up in my house, me and my older sister. And my dad coached basketball. So he was the varsity boys coach in our town for, I think, 20 years, for a long time. So I grew up going to all his games. My birthday present every year was that I got to go to my dad's practice, put my hands, in the huddle, which I loved, or I got to ride the bus home if they had a tournament with them. And so I grew up loving basketball. Soccer was definitely, my favorite sport growing up to play. I loved it. I played all club soccer and travel soccer. And then I had a babysitter actually that played lacrosse, and she was also our neighbor, and so she gave me and my sister sticks and said that we had to play. So we started playing and we played later. My sister really loved it. She definitely took a liking to it and was really good at it. And I just kind of followed what she did. And it was easy for my parents because we were a year apart and they just dropped us off wherever. And, from there, it was I just absolutely loved it. And, it just gave me so much of my life now. And I'm so grateful for. But yeah, I just an athlete growing up, had an older sister, kind of did everything that she did. And my dad was a coach. So I knew at a really young age I wanted to be a coach and hopefully in college. But I played at Syracuse after that. And after that, Stephen, you already mentioned, but I coached at Harvard, BC, and now I'm back at Syracuse as the head coach.
Kayla, one thing I'm curious about listening to you talk, your dad's a coach, obviously, we'll get into how he kind of inspired you to get into coaching. But before you got into lacrosse, like what did practicing for hoops look like, especially with your dad as a coach? Did he have to push you to practice? Did he just drop you off and let you be? What was that experience like?
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting. I think and this is my case, but as a parent, if you force your kid to do something or like something, sometimes that doesn't always work. And in my parents' case, my dad just had such a passion for coaching and teaching, and he loves the game of basketball and he loves sports. So if you watch your parent and somebody that you idolize just love something, then I think you end up having a passion for it as well. And so they never had to push me to want to like sports or want to play basketball. It was just, I had to because my dad loved it so much. And watching somebody love something, it's just so inspiring. Yeah, my dad actually was my coach in youth basketball as well. And, definitely pretty hard on me. I remember one time I missed part of the warm up because I was going to the bathroom or something. I was doing something and I got benched and I didn't start. And, it just, my dad was hard on me, but I loved it. I watched him be so passionate about it. And, so it all came easy. It just, I was never forced to do something. The only thing I was forced to do was swimming lessons. So I hated swimming. Um, but everything other than that, like, I absolutely just love sports, and he loved all sports too. He coached football in our town, and, so yeah.
Upbringing wise and playing multiple sports, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but you were a pretty serious soccer player as well, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at times you considered maybe playing both in college.
Yeah, I wanted to play soccer and lacrosse in college, and actually the only school that said that I couldn't do it was Syracuse, and I ended up going there. But I really wanted to play both, but I'm so glad that I didn't.
We've talked a lot about just multi-sport athletes and coaches' views on it. So just wanted to hit that quickly. But now shifting over into your Syracuse career, as you're explaining your background, I think you're being very humble, and I know that that's how you are. But we've talked a lot and throughout the last year or so, and I got the chance to watch you a lot growing up. Whether I was watching my sisters play you, and then when you were at Syracuse, I was always a huge fan of your game, and I've paid a lot of attention to the women's game through my sisters. So I spent just as much time watching the men's game as the women's game. And your Syracuse career, you're probably, if not the greatest, one of the greatest Syracuse women's lacrosse players of all time. And you started your career off with a bang. You're a freshman and you're a first team All-American. That obviously doesn't happen a lot. But one thing I wanted to touch on is you are a natural righty. But basically, you turned into a lefty. So could you explain that story to us a little bit?
So in high school, we were just talking about before this, but I played U19 for the US team, and I was a two-way midi and a right-handed player. So when I was being recruited to play in college, everybody recruited me as a midi. And I don't know if Gary ever said you're going to play attack here, but when I got on campus, I started playing attack, and I wasn't super surprised just because he had kind of mentioned it in the recruiting process, but it was definitely different because I played my whole life as a midfielder. Um, and when I got to campus, I moved to attack, which I ended up loving. It's definitely the position for me. But something interesting that happened was Michelle Tumalo, who was at Syracuse, who the year before she was a Tewaaraton finalist. So one of the top players in the country, returning. She could be the best player in the country. She in the Final Four got a red card, actually in the national championship game. So if you get a red card in our sport, you have to sit the following game. And because it happened in the national championship game, that meant that she had to sit out in the first game of the season. So we were playing Jacksonville down at Jacksonville, and they had the entire starting four returning attack. So it was Devin Collins, Kayla Treanor, Michelle Tumalo, and Alyssa Murray. So because she was out, I had this opportunity to play. The only caveat was that I had to play left-handed crease attack, and I was a right-handed player. So sometimes it's not the opportunity that you're looking for, but when an opportunity comes, you have to take it. And so I worked really, really hard at becoming a left-handed player. I brushed my teeth left-handed. I ate my food left-handed. I practice all the time left-handed. I actually went over break to the gym and I would shoot foul shots left-handed, just anything I could do to use my left hand. And I really studied left-handed players. And I actually felt like the best left-handed players all used their bottom hand, which was my strong hand, my right hand. And I got the best example ever of it with Gary Gate every day. And I would just watch how he held his stick. And I figured out how to do it. And I figured out how to play left-handed. And it was the first game of my freshman year. And I had 5 goals. And I played really well. And that was only one game. So that opportunity was taken away. And then I split time and I played right-handed. And then it was really unfortunate for our team. But halfway through the year, Michelle Tumalo tore her ACL. And it was just devastating for the team because we had so much promise. We were top 3 team in the country that whole year. And I mean, we had, in my mind, the best player in the country. It was Michelle Tumalo. And amazing players around her. So when she went down, it was really devastating. But like I said, when opportunity comes, you have to be ready to take it. And it wasn't an opportunity I was hoping for or looking for, but it came. And so I got to play half the year and I got to start and I got to play every minute. And in my mind, I just looked at it as, these are really big shoes I have to fill. And I'm not trying to just step in and do my best. Like, this team needs something. This team needs somebody to step up how Michelle did. And that's the role I tried to take. And, I didn't want to just play, or I didn't want to just play righty. I was just determined that I would be the best left-handed player. That's what I was going to be. And I was ready for the moment because I had already worked so hard for just one game. And now to this day, like, I prefer my left hand. Every US team I've made, I'm the left-handed crease player. If I have the ball at the end of the game for overtime, I'm probably going to my left. If you're setting me up, like, I'm cutting with my left hand, and I've really just became a lefty. So, it just kind of happened with the opportunity that I was given at a young age as a freshman in college. But, yeah, I would say it's something that I worked incredibly hard for. And, like I said, opportunity, you never know when it's going to come. But if you're ready, it's amazing what you can do when you're ready.
I think going off that, something that can be really hard for, I think, high school athletes that have a lot of success and then they're transitioning to college. You don't know if you're going to get the opportunity, and it's not guaranteed. And the whole, now you've got 4 years of kids that have all been the best players on their teams. And so, even hearing you talk about that, like the amount of time and stuff that you could put in, and theoretically it could have just been one game and you could have been done for the rest of the year, so I think the lesson there too is that you have to do everything you can for just better putting yourself in the position to be successful. But you might not get that look that year or the year after, but it can't hinder you from, putting in the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And I think all the time now, players want, what they see themselves supposed to be playing. And that might not be what the team needs. You might be a midi and you want to score goals, but the team really needs you to play defense. And if you shut off that opportunity, you never know what could happen if you just play defense. And yeah, I think it's just the possibilities are endless if you do what's best for the team, and you never know. You could never play as a midi, and you could play every minute as a defender. And to me, I'd rather be playing. So I think whatever the opportunity is, whatever your team needs, just embrace it. And it's your opportunities are limitless.
So you graduated from Syracuse in 2016. Your final game at Syracuse was in the Final Four in the semifinals. You guys lost to Maryland. And after the game, Gary was in a press conference. And I remember him saying something along the lines of, he was talking about your career. And basically he said, when you watch Kayla Treanor play, it makes you want to pick up a stick and go in your backyard and shoot. And, he was advocating for you to, I think, be player of the year, win the Tworton. And that's kind of the next thing that I wanted to touch on. In your bio, I read how you're a 3-time Tworton Award finalist. Each year, Tworton, I don't believe they don't release the rankings of, who comes in second place in the voting, but I would be hard pressed to find that if you weren't the second person in that voting. Each year you lost the Tworton Award to Taylor Cummings. And, I always say to you, you're probably the best player, especially on the women's side, that has never won the Tworton. And, I think if you and Taylor Cummings were, a year apart or 2 years apart, you might have one or two to your name as well. So, talking about this, and, everyone would love to be a Tworton finalist, but I know how competitive you are, and you wanted to win it. So, what was that like for you, and how did you continue to bounce back, year after year?
Well, I do also wish that they released where you ended up ranking, how they do in the Heisman. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that who knows if Taylor Cummings wasn't playing in my generation, maybe I do have 3. And wouldn't that be great? But I will say, I think it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've always thought about this. If I always went to the Tourathon and really knew that I wasn't going to win it. I knew that Taylor Cummings was going to win the award. But in my mind, I always knew what I was going to say if I had ever won it. I would obviously thank my coaches and my family and my teammates and everybody that had gotten me to that moment, and Syracuse for the opportunity to play there. But the person that I would thank for the Player of the Year award would be Taylor Cummings. Because if she didn't play when I played, I have no idea the player that I would have become, because I always had somebody to chase. And that's a really powerful thing. I mean, I can't imagine if I had played and I felt like at all times I was the best and there was nobody better than me. Because that's not really motivating. What it motivates me so much is to be the best and to want to be the best and to win. And there was always somebody that I was chasing. And that was a really, really powerful thing for me. I mean, it was Taylor Cummings for the Tourathon. It was also Maryland. All 4 years I lost to Maryland in the Final Four or the national championship. And man, would I like to have a national championship as a player? Yes. But I really am thankful for her, because I think she had played a big part in the player, the athlete, the person that I am today. I don't know if she was doing that on purpose, but she certainly influenced how I play. I mean, the motivation that I had as a player was just tremendous. I mean, in the summer, for example, I never got my wisdom teeth out in college when I needed to get them out, because whether it was winter break or whether it was summer, I would not take 2 days off. I could not afford it. And in my mind, every day it was my motivation. I had so much room to grow. I had so much more to achieve. I had such a gap to fill because she was the best and I wasn't there. And even though I never won one, I think I've had a lot of success in my career as a player. Stephen, you mentioned it. I was a first team All-American all 4 years, and I was at the Tourathon 3 times. But I still never reached the pinnacle. But I'm so grateful because I never think I would have had the success that I did without her. So as hard as it was not to ever reach the ultimate goal, I think that's the amazing thing about sports is you can give your best. You can go for it. You can go for your ultimate goal and you might not get it. And that's a great lesson for life, but it's so worth going for it because you can achieve so much more than you could have ever imagined.
Kayla, I'm really curious when you reflect back on, that chase, that pursuit, whether it was obviously, the national championship as a team, Torton as a player, but also, you're chasing this player that you're having this internal competition with. One, did you ever feel like it got, unhealthy or just imbalanced? I'm just curious to hear that. And then two, like, how did you keep it from being too much of a negative on your, outlook and mindset versus using it for positive fuel, and I can think to those players in my 4 years that I was competing against, and maybe they didn't always think it was a competition, but it drove me. But I also know I can look back and be like, man, like that got a little intense at times, like I'd love to hear like how you've reflected on that too.
I think it probably could have turned unhealthy if I didn't know her. Um, it's funny because the media really pitted us against each other. We always played against each other. I mean, every year we played Maryland in the Final Four or the national championship game. And how does that always line up? I'm not sure. Every year we were in this race for the Touraton against each other. I mean, in my era, if you look at a magazine cover, it's me and her. There's this constant pitting against each other in the media. Um, but this is one of the reasons I'm really grateful that I played US because through my US experience, I got to really know her as a person. And I got to know her family. I got to know what she's like off the field. And she's a really wonderful person. And she's a great friend of mine. And she is the ultimate competitor. I mean, she will cut your legs off to win, but she's the nicest person when she walks off the field. And we actually really developed a great friendship off the field. Um, I have a picture in my office of us playing in our last game for US in the last World Cup together with our arms around each other. And that picture really means a lot to me because, like I said, I owe so much to her. Um, so even though I was this ultra competitive with her as an individual and with my Syracuse team, at the same time, I really knew her. And I think, like I said, that's another thing that's just amazing about sports is, you can step on the field and it can bring out this side of you, this ultra competitive side of you. But the other amazing thing about sports is the relationships that you're able to make. And I was able to, become really good friends with her, and I still am to this day. And I appreciate her a lot. But I think that's what made it a really positive thing for me is the relationship that I was able to build with her through our US days.
So one more question on your playing career before we kind of shift gears and focus on your coaching career. But in 2016, like I said, your senior year, I remember I actually went with my sister. I had just committed to transfer to Syracuse and decided to go up there for a weekend. You guys were playing, I think it was your first game of the year, playing against Loyola your senior year. And I'm watching you, and suddenly you're taking the draw control. You had never taken it the previous 3 years. And, you start winning a couple. And then, by the end of the game, you had set a Syracuse record for draw controls in a game. And I believe by the time you graduated that year, you set the single season draw control record, which I believe was broken last year by Kate Mashesky. So I wanted to ask you about that. What pushed you to take the draw control your senior year? It might be in terms of talking about Taylor Cummings and just you being a more developed player there. But you didn't just take the draw control. You set a record doing it in your first year. So can you tell us a little bit about what that process was like?
I only took the draw my senior year of college, but I was actually on the draw team for my first 3 years. So all that meant was during warm-ups, I would take a couple draws, but knew I was never going to get in the game and take a draw. Um, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't always want that. My first 3 years, we had amazing draw specialists in Kirkland Losey and Kayla Treanor, and they dominated. And it was not a need of the team. It was not something that I needed to do. And I had full trust in them. But I knew it was a skill that I could potentially get. I took it in high school. No one had really ever taught me to draw, but naturally I'm a very observant person, and I was just super interested in it. It's so unique. It's different than other sports, and it's how every game starts. Every new possession starts with a draw. It's just so intriguing to me. And it's a sport where you could play, make it, take it. And there's not many sports like that. In basketball, you score, the other team takes it out of bounds. So it's just this really nuanced thing in our sport that always really interested me. And I will be honest and say that Gary definitely did not want me to take the draw. I took a really large load on the offense. I had to do a lot. And Gary did not want me to get tired. And not just physically tired, but mentally tired. Because it's a very mental position and skill. So he didn't want me to do it. And I was determined to prove to him that I could do it. So I was already on the draw team, and it was, after Kayla Treanor had graduated, we didn't have anybody to take the draw. It was a need of the team. And it's kind of like an example I was talking about with becoming a left-handed player. I knew that the team needed it, and it's such an important part of our game. So, wow, what a great opportunity for me to figure out a way to dominate this and help our team be really successful when we just graduated all these really good players. So it was our first fall ball scrimmage. We were playing at Cornell. I didn't have a draw stick. I was using my field stick, but we had draw sticks. That was a big thing with Gary. And I'm like, man, if I can do really well with my regular stick, Gary will see that I'm good at this. And then maybe I'll get a draw stick, and maybe I'll get more opportunity. And I remember, honestly, that was my only focus in the game. I knew everybody knew what I could do on the offensive end, but I had to prove something on the draw. And I remember just absolutely dominating the draw. And I don't think I lost one draw control. And that's really hard to do in women's lacrosse. But I was just so focused, and I put in so much time and so much preparation. I visualized the moment, and I did great. So I was forcing my coaches to play me. And that's something I also think is so important now. It's like, if you believe you can do something, you have to force your coaches to play you. You have to make them look like an idiot if they don't play you in this position. So it's something that I practiced all the time. And I would always have somebody film me with a camera and slow-mo. So I could watch it back and see what I was doing. And I'm really grateful for Gary. I had an awesome draw stick, but he also would teach me new techniques. And then I felt ready to go. So game 1, we were playing Loyola in the first game that you were talking about, Steven, of my senior year. And my first every time taking it, I had 19 draw controls, which is a lot. And then I was proving that I could also get it done on the offensive end. And we did. I think we beat them by over 10 goals in that game. So to me, it was a mission to prove that I can do it. And it was really also to my coaches to prove that, hey, I can do this. And, but it took a lot of work, and I'm grateful that I did do that, because now I think it's a skill of mine that I can do and I can teach. And I think that is something that the women's game doesn't really have a whole lot of. So, it was a lot of fun, and I love to prove people wrong, and I love to master a skill. And I think it's something that I've certainly mastered.
Side note, do you ever think we see the women's game with every team having a draw specialist that, takes the draw, gets off the field? Do you think it's just situational based on the athletes a team has? Like, do you have a view on that?
Whatever it takes. If you have a draw specialist, you have a draw specialist, and that's great. That can be all their focus. They can do that all practice. That's the only thing they can think about. They can scout the other team. That's amazing if you have it. Then you don't have to do the transition on the field of draw stick to field stick. But if you don't have that and it has to be your best player, it's your best player. If it's a role player, it's a role player. I think it's whatever you have to just utilize it. And I think it's so important, though. You can't be afraid to use your best player on the draw. I mean, you need the ball. You need the ball to win the game. So, whatever it takes, whatever you have, I think some people are trying to recruit face-off specialists for sure. And that's great if you can find it. But I think the key is, can you teach it? So to me, it doesn't really matter who it is. Can you teach it? And then can you have a player that can do it? And whoever that player is on your roster, that's the one that should be taking it.
So flipping gears here now to your coaching career, we highlighted, you're at Harvard for a year, you're at BC then for 4 years, correct? And you've been around a lot of the top coaches. You're coached by Gary all throughout college at Syracuse, and then you're coaching under Keisha. These are two people who we've also had on our podcast, and they had great things to say, and they're just storied coaches. They're going to go down as legends. So you learned a lot from them, but I also want to know, what makes you different as a coach? You got the head coaching job at Syracuse at the age of 27. And, I know you took a lot from what those two taught you, but, what makes you different? What do you implement on your own?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and something that may be hard to answer. But I think for me, first of all, I have been so fortunate in my life and in my coaching career to coach with some of the best coaches of all time and have these people as my mentors, and then work alongside, some of just the best coaches in the game and the best mind. So I think I'm always surrounded by amazing people, and I'm very fortunate for that. I think when I think about myself and what is unique about me and what is my superpower or what is it that I'm really good at, I think it is my ability to see things that other people can't. I naturally am a very observant person. Um, in my everyday life, I'll be very clear. I'm not detail oriented. I am not a type A person whatsoever. I am disorganized, but I am very observant. I always have been. When I was really young, my mom told me I should be an interior designer or a decorator because I'm incredibly observant. And I think that has really translated for me into sports. And when I think about like the people that I've coached with, everybody, like I said, everybody has their own superpower. And I think about like last year with the coaches that I coach with, Caitlin has this incredible ability with zone defense. I mean, she knows it better than anybody else. Abby, your sister, Steven, like she has this ability to understand what's happening in a game at all times, knows when to change the offense, when to change the defense, when we should make adjustments. She understands that. For me, it's the smallest things that I can see that I don't think other people are noticing. I think a lot of times too, I'm definitely, I prefer coaching the offensive side of the ball. I'm an offensive mind. And I think a lot of coaches, when they're coaching offense, they're watching their offense. So they're watching how the players are moving, what the offense looks like. Are you running your system? And I'm not watching that. I miss so much. I am watching the defense. So to me, like when a player says, what should I do here? What should I have done there? My answer is the defense always gives you the answer. They always give you the answer. And it could be the individual defender, it could be the team defense, but that's often what I'm really watching. So I think I have this ability because I understand what the defense is doing so well that the smallest things I'm noticing, and I can make tweaks for the offense that can make all the difference that I don't think a lot of other people see. It could be telling a player to change how they're holding their stick. It could be in this zone offense, we're going to be putting this person here and for this reason. I think of games where I've done something like this. Okay, we're going to make every cut straight down the middle. And this is why, because of this is how the defense is playing it. And no one else is really seeing this. And I don't question my decision. It's not like, this might work. I know for a fact that this is going to work. And I think that also really gets the player, they trust me. They know They know it's going to work because I don't have any hesitation. And then we do it and we see it works. And I know, and then it gives the players a lot of belief. And it's really not big things and it's not normal things. It's really like nuanced things. Maybe the one defender, how she's standing with her left foot. I know in transition, we can do this against her. Like, it's just the smallest things. I think it's my ability to see things that other people can't that makes me really unique. I would say that's my best ability as a coach, and what makes me different than other coaches is just, and I think that's why the draw came really natural to me, because it's such a small thing, and it's something that comes really natural. It's just how observant I am. So I would say that's my uniqueness as a coach.
So Kayla, do you think that is kind of works in two parts? Like, is that one part all your game prep and scouting, and how you watch film, and then second part being like the game day adjustments and the stuff that you're seeing to be able to make those shifts? Like, how do you think about that when you're, one, you're game planning, you're trying to, organize practice, get your players on the same page, get them confidence building up into the week. But then two, when you start seeing those changes and stuff you want to take advantage of, being able to implement that. So how does that, typically flow for you?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think part one, certainly, I love scouting an opponent. I love it because it can give you so many tools to be able to manipulate and get your team ready. And I would say one thing that we do really well at Syracuse is we really have detailed game plans. Like, we know what we're going to do, and everybody's different, but we do focus on the other team and how we're going to attack them, because it changes every game. Everybody does the thing a little different. And so I think, yes, part one, it's game planning. Before you're in there, we like to tweak different things and play our offense a little different based on our opponent. But I think in game too, it's absolutely that. It's tweak. And my observant thing, kind of what I'm talking about, it's not just like in-game adjustments. It's also when I'm talking about my ability to see little things, it's like I can't prepare for this, but now I know that a defender in the game is missing a screw in their head. So I can tell the ref, and then we get the ball back. Like, it's something so small like that, or anything. It could be something in the draw. It could be something, like I said, how a defender is standing, or whatever it may be. I notice things all the time in a game that I didn't know prior. So being able to make those adjustments in the game, or being able to call a stick check, something like that comes up. So I think it's definitely both parts. It happens all the time in a game, but it also happens prior to the game as well.
I love thinking back to the other podcasts we've had and the different coaches. And I just remember Gary talking a little bit about, for him and his experience, like, he was such a competitor where it was like, hey, anything I can do to find an advantage, I will try to exploit it, and when you think about that, like the screw or a rule or someone substitutes the wrong way or something, if you can observe and know your stuff, which you do, you can, get opportunities and get possessions back. And so it's cool to hear. And I think for coaches listening to this podcast, like, those are also the things to try to do more of, in addition to just schemes and recruiting or whatever it may be.
So it's really funny you say that, because it's just interesting. I've listened to a lot of your guys' podcasts about coaches and like what makes them special and whatnot. And we did a webinar with a Zoom with Sue Bird when I was on the US team during COVID, and she came and talked to us. And I asked her this question about UConn basketball, and they have the greatest players and they have the greatest program. They've won more national championships than everybody. And Sue knows better than anybody what that is. And what is it? Like, what is it about UConn? Is it the school? Is it the coach? Is it how you guys do? What is it? And then, can you replicate that? And it was really interesting. I'll never forget it. Her answer was, it's Gino. It's his ability to create these impossible situations. And then you do them and it makes you believe. And it's like, oh, when you hear that, it's like, oh, yeah, any coach can do that. You got to do that in practice. But her answer was, you can't replicate it, because that's what he's the best at. Anybody can try to do it, but he is the best at that. So I also think with coaches, you have to know what you're great at. Like for me, I'm saying it's my ability to see things that others can't. But that's not everybody can replicate that, right? So like I think for everybody, it's figuring out what is it that you're best at, and you got to do that all the time and be confident in it. And you might not be able to replicate it. What makes Northwestern really successful might not be the same as what makes BC really successful. What makes Syracuse really successful might not be what it is for North Carolina. So you've got to be yourself. You got to be unique to you. And you can't, you know, they do say the greatest coaches are the greatest thieves. Like you got to always be taking things and trying things, but you also have to be you. And the players know that. The players know if you're being you and being authentic. So I think it's also figuring out what you're best at and using that to as your superpower.
When talking about, maybe you make a tweak mid-game and you mention how your players trust that, like that they believe in that. You've had a really quick rise in the coaching ranks. I mentioned earlier you took over Syracuse at the age of 27. And you and I have talked a lot about, you have to believe in yourself as a player. And, you've had your own experiences with that. I've had my own experiences with that. When I mentor athletes, I'm telling them all the time, like if you don't believe in yourself, and this is age old, but if you don't believe in yourself, why should your coach? Similar to even stuff that you were saying on the draw. But, I wanted to talk about confidence and believing in yourself. You look at your career and it's like, well, why wouldn't you be, extremely confident? You've accomplished so many different things. And then you look at your coaching career, you're already kind of in that dream role that so many people, would want. So is that something that has come naturally to you throughout your entire life? Or is that something that you've had to actively work on?
Do I have confidence? Yes. I believe that I am supposed to be here. I believe when I'm in a room and it's the best players or the best coaches, do I believe I should be there? Yes, I have confidence. But man, do I struggle with confidence. And I think everybody does. I mean, you're talking about when I got the job at 27. So I got the job at Syracuse at 27 years old with a program who Gary Gait was just the head coach of, who was beloved by everybody. I mean, he's the Michael Jordan of our sport. They had just played in a national championship. I mean, in our first team meeting, and I'm the new coach, I am so nervous. I am freaking out because, man, do I have big shoes to fill. And that man is one of one. So I have always struggled with my confidence. I mean, as a player, it's the same thing. I've always struggled with my confidence. But it's something that, it's a fine line, and it's a funny dance because you have to have confidence. But I also think the best athletes are in this constant desire to be better. And I think that's kind of where I lie. I think, like I said, in coaching, like I've always struggled with confidence, but in a really, I think, positive and productive way in wanting to be the best and wanting to achieve more. And I gave that example of walking into my first team meeting. I think about as a player, and this is, I think, an interesting story. So I have had, like you said, I've had a lot of success and I've been a great athlete for my life in soccer and basketball and in lacrosse. And I have never in my life been cut from a sports team. And when I was 27 years old, at the same time when I became a head coach, I was still playing US. And our coaching staff came out with rankings. You were ranked by your position, 1 through however many players there were. And to make the US team, you've got to be top 3 or top 4. That's all they take. And I was ranked in the bottom 3. And that was such an important time in my life because I'm 27 years old. I've achieved so much success. I'm right off a national championship as a coach. I've played on the US team since I was 15. And now I'm struggling with, I might get cut from a team for the first time in my life. And I'm an adult going through this. And I'm also the coach of all these players. And I have so much responsibility. So I got with Jerry Lynch, who I know Acacia on this podcast I talked about with a lot. He was our sports psychologist for 1 year when I was at Syracuse. So I reached out to him on my own. And I'm like, man, I am really struggling with my confidence. And I worked with him. And we did a lot of work together. But one thing that really stands out to me is that as we were going through how I felt, I'll never forget it. He told me that my mindset was selfish. And that was, oh my, that was the worst feeling. It was like putting a knife in my chest. It was just, I don't ever want to be seen as selfish, as a teammate, as a person, as a player, as a coach. But he just talked about my mindset when I'm at US is I'm thinking about my own play. Like I'm constantly thinking about how I'm doing, or did I score there? Or when am I getting rotated in? Or everything was just so self-centered. And that is not what makes you successful. And that's not to this point what has gotten me here. And so when I went into my next training camp, I had to reframe how I thought about US. And I reframed it by thinking about, okay, well, if I do get cut, and the whole time I'm just constantly worried about how I'm playing and what I'm doing, well, man, I'm not going to enjoy my last camp. So my next time going in there, my only focus was having fun. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to have fun. I didn't want to focus on the coaches and their decisions. I wasn't going to focus on my play. It was just going to be, man, if this is your last time playing for US, just go all out and have as much fun as possible. And it totally changed the way I play. I played so much better. And then I just kept going with that. So I think confidence is something that you really have to work on. And I've put a ton of work on this. And I really, really strongly believe in mental preparation and visualization and all these things, because I think everything in life happens twice. It has to happen in your mind first, and then you can do it. Like you don't doubt yourself and never see it possible, and then you go and do it. That's just not how it works. You have to see it for yourself before you do it, right? Like Steven, you and I talk all the time, and you weren't recruited, and you knew you could play at the highest level, and then it happened, but you saw it in your mind first. And it's the same thing with me in all these moments, whether it be playing on the biggest stage or coaching in the biggest stage. Like I have to see it in my mind first before it can happen. And, that is confidence. And it takes a lot of hard work. And that's, I think one of the other things is like, as a player, you're always thinking like when you play your best, it's like, oh my God, what did I eat that day? What did I do that day? And you're always just trying to replicate that. But that takes it's a lot of work. And that's all mental. That's all mental. So confidence is something that I think everybody struggles with. Like I would be lying if I said I didn't. But it's something that you can work on and you can develop. And then once you see results and once you see yourself having success because of your preparation, you can develop a lot of confidence, earned confidence. I think there's something so amazing about earned confidence, whether it be, I always talk to my teams about this. It's like, well, you're playing whoever, you're playing North Carolina, but you've already beaten all these good teams. You have earned confidence. You know that you can do it. And I think that's the same as an individual. And I know that's how I look at it. Like I have this earned confidence.
I love hearing about the story with Jerry and then the have fun piece. I know that was something that I just really struggled with because I felt like the self expectations and the pressure I was always putting on myself, like really, it was just heavy, and it didn't come from anyone else. But there was times we were writing the words joy on our arms, just trying to like have fun. And I just always would ask myself, like, this should be more fun, and it was just, but it's something that we just always had to work at. And Coach Caputo is one of the best coaches I ever had. I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year, but he just reminded me, like, he's like, I think if you put more time into worrying about helping the other guys than obsessing over all this stuff you're doing for yourself, which is, it's not selfish, but to your point, like it could be perceived that way, or it's just very inwardly focused. He's like, I think it will allow you to relax and like, focus less on what you're doing and take off the pressure. And he was really right. I've tried to transfer that advice to so many players because I do think it really, it's a key thing.
Totally. I think it makes the world of a difference. And I'm actually even making a mental performance packet right now for a team. And one of the pages on it is humor. Like I really believe in enjoying this experience and bringing humor and bringing light to it, because I'm watching also a masterclass with Gino Auriemma, and he talks about like pressure and how to perform under pressure. And he's always talking about just trying to dial down the pressure for his players. And the example he gives is like, okay, you're playing in a Final Four and you have to make a basket. Yeah, is that pressure? Yeah. But what real pressure is being a single mom and having to put food on the table for your children. That's pressure. There are real world consequences if you can't perform that. If you don't make a basket in the Final Four, it's like, yeah, it'll stink, but your life goes back to normal in 3 days completely. That's really not pressure. So I think at the end of the day, just looking at this, like, yes, it is just a game, and this is supposed to be enjoyable, and this is fun, and these are just kids, and this should be the best experience of your life, and it can be. You can have balance. You can push yourself, and you can be hard on yourself, and you can be disciplined, and this can be business-like for you. But at the same time, this also has to be really enjoyable and a lot of fun. And I will credit Gary for that. I think he's really instilled that in all the players and the people that he's been around in the game. Like, he really just has a lot of fun with it and enjoys it. And it does also relieve a lot of pressure.
So, Kayla, one thing I'm curious about, and I see this a lot in our sport, and I also see it in terms of rhetoric around coaching, and also for coaches that maybe are not notable players but love coaching. You see in other sports like football, basketball, like some of these guys and girls really worked their way up the ranks and didn't have a lot of great playing experience. You've had one of the best playing careers of all time, men's or women's. So for you, like, how have you, faced some of those challenges of, one, relating to your players? Some players maybe could look at you and say, well, you've done all this. Like, you're so amazing. Like, maybe I can't do that. Or, maybe like, hey, it's easy for you to say, like, you've had all this success. And I also just think in general too, like, being a great player doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach. So how have you tried to bridge that gap, work on your craft, and not just, hey, I'm a great player, so it's going to mean I'm a great coach? And then how have you connected with your players? I know it's kind of like a lot of different stuff packed into one question, but I just think it's a fascinating topic, because I think, again, like, coaching's its own profession. Like, you don't have to be this great player to be a great coach, but I think you're both. So, how has that experience been for you?
Well, I certainly believe what you're saying. Like, you absolutely do not have to be a great player to be a great coach. Some of the best coaches I've been around in all sports weren't great players. I mean, this is no knock on my father. My dad's a basketball coach. I think he's one of the best coaches I've ever been around, but I think it's because of his ability to teach. And he's an amazing teacher. He did not play in a Final Four. He was not, you know, he just he's a great teacher. I mean, I think of basketball all the time. I think Jim Boeheim. I mean, he was a good player. He wasn't one of the best players in the country. Coach K was a good player, but he's the greatest coach maybe of all time in basketball outside of John Wooden. And he wasn't this incredible player. You look at John Wooden, it's all over. I mean, I've been talking Gino Auriemma, like, these weren't the best players. They are some of the greatest coaches of all time. So I completely agree. You don't need to be a great player. But I think in my case, I I absolutely want to lean on my experience as a player to help me as a coach, because I have such a unique experience. I mean, I we've talked about when I got the job at Syracuse at 27 years old. It's like, man, I don't have a lot of experience, but I certainly have unique experience, that I've played in 4 Final Fours. And prior to being at Syracuse, every year I coach, with the exception of one, I coached in a national championship game. And now being at Syracuse, I'm really lucky. I've in 3 years, I've been coaching in 2 Final Fours. So my experience is certainly unique, even though I am really young. Um, so like I said, I don't think you have to be this great player, but I think you can certainly lean on it. And I've had a lot of experiences along the way that have helped me. I mean, I think first of all, it's my dad was the coach. Like, I didn't stumble upon coaching because I was a really good player. Like, I knew at a really young age I wanted to coach. When I was going through the recruiting process as a 9th grader, I mean, I was talking to every coach about wanting to coach one day. So this is something that I was always destined or wanted to do. It was my desire. And this is what I wanted to do professionally. And my sister is the same way. We grew up in this house where like coaching was a possibility, and for female athletes, it's not always you think of as a possibility. It was for us. And my sister coaches now at Union. So it was always a desire of ours. So like I said, it wasn't something that I stumbled upon. And then I just had experiences along the way. My first year in coaching, when I coached at Harvard, I was, fresh out of college. I was young. I think a lot of times in that position, you're showing the players what to do. It's like, oh, I'm going to demo or I'm going to play with you. Well, I tore my PCL and my meniscus. So I couldn't show them anything. I had to be able to verbalize it to them. And it was my very first year in coaching. So like that experience really helped me. At Harvard, Lisa Miller was an amazing coach. And I also got to coach with Carla Farkas, and she is the best recruiter I have ever been around. I mean, her ability to remember every single kid and what they do. I mean, she was incredible at it. Then I get to go to BC and learn from some of the best coaches in the country with Acacia and Jen. Then I get to be at Syracuse and coach with all of these people that are really good at all the things that I'm not good at. So I've just been very fortunate along the way to just be surrounded by people that have really helped me in situations that have really helped me. And although I'm really young, I have very, very fortunate, very unique experiences.
We've mentioned, you playing on Team USA between U19 and the senior team, but you have recently been named the offensive coordinator of the USA Women's National Senior Team. What has that been like for you? You've been a part of this since you said you were 15 years old. You recently retired after the last World Games, and you'll be a part of the next one. So you're not really taking one off. But what has that been like to just see that all come to fruition, be around these amazing coaches, all these amazing players? Just describe that a little.
Well, first of all, I would say that I think the biggest thing that it gives me is just gratitude. And that's a core value of mine is gratitude and living life that way. And I remember specifically when I played U19, we were at the ring ceremony, and my mom always did this thing, like take a mental picture, like just close your eyes and remember these moments or things that you really loved. And I remember being at ring ceremony and closing my eyes and thinking like, man, I will never be back here. Like this was my only chance to play US. And like, just remember this because this meant so much to you. And then, man, like how lucky am I that, within 2 years, I'm back in the program and I'm playing in the senior team that I never, ever, ever thought that it would be possible. And I got to play in 2 World Cups and I got to play alongside some of the best players in the country. And now the same thing, I get to coach all the best players in the country. So I think the biggest thing it gives me is gratitude for, like, first of all, I talk about like places that I've been. And when I'm talking to people, it's like, oh, have you ever been out of the country? It's like, yeah, I've been to London. I've been to Germany. And all of this is through US. And I think one of the greatest things it's given me too, is this network of people that I never would have been exposed to without playing and coaching US. In the last however many years, 15 years, I have been able to create relationships with all of the best players and coaches in the world. And that is an amazing thing. And I do not take that for granted. And I know I am where I am today because of all of these amazing people that I've been able to get to know and have relationships with. And I am so lucky and so fortunate for that. And I'm really grateful too for all the coaches that have chosen me to play on the team. It started with Kristen Porchella, my U19 coach, Ricky Freed, and Jenny Levy. They can pick whoever they want. They absolutely can pick whoever they want, and they're probably going to win every game by 15 goals. But I was selected, so I'm so grateful for them. And then it's the same thing with Acacia. Acacia can pick anybody she wants to coach that team, and she chose me. So I just feel so grateful to all these people for allowing me to be in the same room and to be able to coach and to play on the international stage. And it's really a great experience. And I think it's something that it's just like if you win a national championship, you can never get that taken away from you. If you get to play on US, I mean, the hardest thing to do, I think, in our sport is to make that team. It's not playing a World Cup, it's to make that team, to make that roster. And I think for me, we talk about confidence and you're always struggling with confidence. Everybody is. But playing US and coaching US allows me to stand a little taller and, make me believe in myself just a little bit more and know that really anything is possible. And if I put my mind to it, I can do it. So I'm incredibly grateful for it. And it's been one of the best experiences for me in terms of my lacrosse journey.
Kayla, is there anything when you go from being a player for all these years with US to now being a coach? Is there anything you're going to be intentional around trying to pass on to those groups of players or, really focus on when you're, around them and trying to coach them for the time you have together?
The biggest thing that I'm trying to do now as a coach is making sure that this process is fair. And not that it wasn't ever fair, it was always very fair, but I think as a player, I was very in tune with, um, how these decisions were made, and it's just such an honor. I just see this as such a big deal that I just wanna make sure that everybody that plays in the US program feels like it was fair and that they got an opportunity and the best players are gonna end up making it. And it's incredibly challenging to do, but I hope that not everybody's gonna be happy, but I hope they feel like it was fair. And I hope that, you know, we could field the best national team and that's gonna be a big coaching decision between the 5 of us, but, I hope that the players feel like the process was fair. That's one of my goals.
Listening to you talk, we're talking about your background, talking about Syracuse, talking about, your USA career, your coaching career. We really appreciate you taking the time to hop on the podcast with us. And, you've been a really big supporter of Deemer for all these years. I've been with First Class now for almost a year. And, like I said, we talk about it a lot. But, just want to thank you. And, you've accomplished so much, but I think you're also in the really early chapters, of your actual, full blown career. And, I think you have a lot left and, really confident in you and what you're going to continue to do, with Syracuse, with Team USA, and with everything else you're doing. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. This is awesome and best of luck. Keep doing what you're doing.